Hello and welcome to the daily newscast within the United Countries special by First Ukraine. You can find us at the frequencies available at our website, firsttoday.com. Taras Chechko is working for you in the studio. Thank you for joining us. 7 military men were killed and 11 were wounded in the ATO zone for the last day. It was reported by spokesman of the National Security and Defense Council, Andriy Lysenko. Terrorists fired the ATO fighters near Donetsk 14 times, in the area of Debaltseve 16 times, and attacked military men near Luhansk 8 times. About the news from the ATO zone in the following story.
The number of attacks by terrorists has increased, such data of NSDC. This video took one of the Ukrainian militants. It is told during the so-called region of ceasefire that terrorists with Russian each day utilized large-caliber weapons, also actively use tanks. The column came under attack of Russian tanks. Why Russian? Because we captured 5 Russian soldiers, young boys under 19 years old. What we have found, there is an individual one. Russian army individual diet. Again, Donetsk airport was bombed, reported in NSDC. Airfield was bombarded with hell, mortars and tanks. Some terrorists who are fighting there even don't know how to utilize the weapons that they have. Come on, fire. And how it shoots. Press 16, there is a button, look, it's clear. Now it sharply smells. And where you are aiming at. Instead, Ukrainian military who prohibited Donetsk airport the attacks repulsed. In order to remind about yourself, again posted Ukrainian flag on their positions. Shouting. Really salute. Under the massive artillery fire, the village Novotashkivka, Luhansk region, reporting in Lugansk Regional State Administration. Only local residents were suffered there. In government administration, there are any Ukrainian troops in the village. These are side by side. The checkpoint settlement was fired because have suffered. Not only in Novotashkivka, there have been fired and Staniska of Lugansk, as far as I know. They have been fired and those block posts S29 and 31. The opposition militants fired from tanks, artillery and mortars in the Donetsk region, near the settlement Slavne, Mayorske, Gorlivka, Debaltseve, Sanjarivka. In Lugansk, nearby the towns Krimske, Sokilniki, Chornukhino, Zoloto, Mius, Popasna, Tashchastia. In the NDC, it is said that it increased the number of reconnaissance subversive groups. One of such groups was found in the Donetsk region. Near the village Petrivske of Volnovasky region, during movement, the columns of the forces of Auto-Ukrainian subunits that carried out the cover was found diversionary terrorist group and joined the battle. The part of diversions were killed on the spot, 2 others retreated. During the battle, 3 of our soldiers were killed, 1 was injured. At all, according to data of NSDC, during 24 hours was dead 7 Ukrainian militants, was injured 11. Volodymyr Karban, Dasha Mizintsev, First Ukraine.
From Donbass, 150 of dead Russian soldiers were taken to Russia. These are real-time data of the information resistance. Group leader Dmytro Tymchuk reports corpses were taken through the checkpoint Chervonopartizansk. The headquarters of the ATO don't have such numbers of dead Russian soldiers. Meanwhile, spokesman of the headquarters, Vladislav Seleznyov, reported for Ukraine dead Russian soldiers are taken to Severodonetsk, and from there, almost every day, they are transported to Russia. Paris does not see the conditions for the transfer of Mistral to Moscow. It was said by French Finance Minister Michel Sapin. As he explained, the deal cannot be performed because of the situation in Ukraine. Its stabilization is a necessary condition for the transfer of the aircraft carrier, said Sapin. Thus, he denied yesterday's statement by Russian Deputy Prime Minister Dmytro Rogozin. The government official said that the Kremlin would be given Mistral in 2 weeks. The Ministry of Defense of France used to call the contract as frozen, though not cancelled. First, Moscow is urged to discontinue supporting militants in Donbass. Mykolaiv met its so-called cyborgs. To the city returned 120 paratroopers of the 79th Separate Airmobile Brigade that held the defense of the Donetsk airport. They were called cyborgs by terrorist leaders for their endurance, and military men from other fighting areas returned, in particular from the suburbs of Kramatorsk. All of them within the rotation plan. How the fighters were welcomed home, our Mykolaiv journalist saw.
At 9 o'clock in the evening, there are more than 200 people near the checkpoint of brigade, relatives of soldiers and simple residents of the city, majority of them with flowers and national flags. Maria meets her husband and the rest of cyber heroes with him. We want to thank them for everything that they do for us, for our children, for our motherland. Every time when soldiers come back from Donbass, more and more compatriots come to meet them. They say most recently they saw frontline soldiers only in movies, and now they are near. We came just to support our compatriots, our 79th Brigade. We have no relatives there. We just came with my friends to support them because they had become dear for us. It doesn't matter, relatives or not. They are our residents, dear guys. People came despite late night. When soldiers arrived, crowd has exploded with acclamations. Heroes, glory to Ukraine. We were riding so long, we are so tired. We wanted to come here as quickly as possible, and there are so many people there we didn't expect it. Thank you for coming. The commandment promises 10 days of peaceful life for all the 120 paratroopers with their relatives and friends. After the renewal of energy, all of them are ready to go back to the ATO zone. Volodymyr Melnik, Victoria Lakezina, Serhiy Osetsky, First Ukraine.
Prime Minister Arseniy Yatsenyuk said that for the gas, which has already been got by Ukraine, Kyiv will pay $268 for 1,000 cubic meters. There are $3 billion for this purpose. In the future, the gas price will be connected with oil prices, and Ukraine will have to prepay for it as much as it requires.
Our position is the next thing concerning the gas which has been already delivered and payment of those quantities of gas which are partly in storages and partly were used. The position of Ukraine is that the total amount of gas we can pay for the price $268.
3 thieves-in-law were arrested by security servicemen in the center of Kyiv. The criminals gathered for the meeting in a restaurant, as told by the Interior Ministry. In such a way, they were discovered by law enforcers. Representative of one of the most influential clans in the former USSR, using the situation in Ukraine, wanted to redistribute spheres of influence, in particular to take control over the supply of steam coal, passenger transportation, and illegal mining of amber.
Purpose of visit to Ukraine. For treatment. Are you a thief in law? I'm a thief. Are you a thief in law? I will not answer these questions without my advocate.
One of the detainees has already been deported from Ukraine. The other 2 are currently in the Center for Migrants. The question of deportation regarding them, with the prohibition of entry to Ukraine for 5 years, is being considered. And finally, about ancient Lviv. That's it. The settlements of ancient Slavs were found in Lviv. Historical artifacts indicate that the Slavs lived in the territory of modern Lviv more than 500 years before the official date of foundation of the city. Preliminary findings of researchers dated the middle of the 7th century. The findings that were got on the site of future building construction in the city center belong to the Prague-Korchatska archaeological culture.
Archaeologists are carefully clearing the bottom of a 5-meter pit. Such early findings have not been developed yet. It wasn't expected to find the artifacts here. The traditional researches have been done before the beginning of construction. The first finding pleasantly surprised. The expert immediately recognized it belonging to the 7th century. Was found a fragment of a crown molding pot, and its typology refers to the 7th century of the so-called Prague-Korchatska culture. The last time such rarities in the region were found more than 20 years ago. The present findings, according to local historians, may be a confirmation that Lviv was found much earlier than it was stated before. It is supposed now that it was found in the middle of the 13th century. I imagine how Ethlin Danila came and said, "It is a good developed settlement with a developed infrastructure, so starting here tomorrow, and I want it to be walled, and here is meant to be a city Lviv." Experts have found a lot of crossery and porcelain guns for spinning, as well as dozens of ancient coins. We have a metal detector. There are a lot of things like coins, buttons, claps, and the naked eye cannot see them, but the detector is all viewable. In addition, archaeologists have found in ceramic household products of the 15th-16th centuries. Work has just begun, so experts hope for a month or two to find many valuable historical documents. If it is found something completely unique, they will ask the government temporarily suspended house construction. Olga Krupnik, Anatoly Kirichuk, Alexandra Varakuta, First Ukraine.
It was the United Country newscast by First Ukraine. You can find more details at our website firstoday.com. Taras Chechko was working for you in the studio. We wish you only good news. Take care and goodbye.